Please give us your feedback, give us ideas. We would like to put them into action. Let's see what we can do together to save the sea. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to give the floor to Madam Vice Coordinating Minister for Environment and Forestry Management at the Coordinating Ministry for Maritime Affairs and Investment, Indonesia, but talking to us from Germany. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for being able to join us. Her Excellency Nani Hendiarti.
Okay. Kamar belum. Okay. Thank you very much. So, excellent. Can you hear my voice? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah, Excellencies, Miss Maria Joao Lopez Cardoso, the Ambassador of the Portugal to Indonesia, and also Excellency Jackson Nyagana Onkoba, charge of the affairs of the Kenya. Very good afternoon. Apologize, I'm in Berlin right now, so we will have a meeting very soon, but it's really great to be here with all of you. So very good afternoon again. So it is such an honor for us to be able here with all of you to share the ideas about the potential of the natural capital in Indonesia, especially about the ocean. So Indonesia is in the heart of triangle and blessed as a mega marine biodiversity of the blue carbon ecosystem. So it makes Indonesia as the second largest marine fisheries produce by the volume of the that contribute about 27 billion to GDP US dollar. So we also contribute about 3% of the global seafood export market, which earn about 4.8 billion. So Indonesia has a marine areas of 325 million hectares and committed to preserve 10% of the marine area MPA. So we also have developed 2030 strategic planning on the marine protected area management in order to reach 30% of the global commitment. So the MPA management is highly connected to blue carbon ecosystem. So which consists of the mangrove and seagrass in Indonesia. So we have blue carbon policy that's stipulated in presidential regulation number 98 year 2021 is about carbon pricing. Also, I think the biggest carbon potential is from mangrove that have value about 150 tons of the carbon per hectares, and its capacity store carbon for 5 times greater than other tropical forests. So mangrove is also playing important roles to adapt and mitigate the impact of the climate change. I think we all know about this. And then currently we have a program on the rehabilitation of the mangrove for about 600,000 hectares until 2025. So for this until now, until this year, I think the last 1.5 year, we could make the rehabilitation for the mangrove about like 70,000 hectares. So we are now this year accelerate this program, and then we got the support also from the our strategic partners, such also from the World Bank and other international partners. And the activities on for the blue carbon agenda are conducted from the research on the carbon economic and also developing the blue carbon emission reduction measurement and also reporting the framework. And also create an integrated measuring and reporting system for mangrove carbon MRV and mangrove carbon registry. So the next activities are to clarify the carbon rights and then tenure, conducting consultations, developing a benefit sharing plan, and creating also redress mechanism. So next there will be an examination of the market option and benefit cost analysis, building the government capacity to be ready to access the blue carbon. In terms of the MRV system, it will include soil carbon as a carbon pool in the blue carbon monitoring and reporting, and to ensure also the ability to integrate the project biomass soil monitoring methods within the national level forest inventory. To support the management of the blue carbon, Blue Halo as concept is also established with the main core is to develop an ecological connectivity of the MPA, mangrove, and seagrass, and create a life support system for sustainable fishing ground. In my last word, and the forthcoming of the UN Ocean Conference, Indonesia keeps committing to save our ocean and enhancing our coastal community through the strengthening blue carbon governance and blue economy. So thank you very much. Thank you to all. Success for this event. Thank you. See you in Lisbon in the coming of the end of June. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'm going to give the floor to the representative, one of the co-hosts of the UN Lisbon, the Chargé d'Affaires, Kenya, Mr. Jackson Nyagaka Onkoba.
Oh, hello. I didn't hear the last part. Sorry. I think I lost my network briefly. Who is our next speaker? Sorry.
You are sorry, I didn't say hello and did not welcome you, but you are the next speaker. Head of Kenya. Yes, hello. Thank you for being here. Welcome back from Bali.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and the panelists and the distinguished guests who are listening in, who are speaking on this platform. I'm sorry, I think my network seems to be a little bit choppy, so I'm losing a little bit here and there, but I'll try and communicate. And hopefully, but I've listened to you very well, Your Excellency, and I've also listened to Her Excellency Nani when she was speaking, so I believe I'll be able to follow. So, Your Excellency Maria Cardoso, Ambassador of Portugal, Dr. Nani Hendiati, our Deputy Coordinating Minister for Environment and Forestry Management, distinguished panels, ladies and gentlemen, Selamat sore, hamjambo, watade. Indeed, it is a privilege to join you this afternoon for this series of Blue Talks, which are an important milestone in our journey towards the UN Oceans Conference 2022 that will be held in Lisbon very soon. From the onset, let me reiterate that Kenya collectively recognizes the importance and appreciates the fact that these talks are a building block that is so key towards a very successful global conference that will deliberate on key issues, including renewing our commitments towards sustainable use of oceans. All of us know that our oceans occupy over 71% of the Earth's surface, and they are also home to 2.2 million species. They implicitly affect every aspect of our life, regulate global climate, mitigate temperatures, drive weather systems, determine rainfall patterns, droughts and floods. It is also a fact that 83% of the world's carbon cycle is created through the ocean, which absorbs 30% of the annual anthropogenic carbon emissions. Across the globe, most of the world's megacities and indeed the communities that live around coastal areas and regions often have deep-rooted cultural, social, physical connections with the ocean. Most coastal communities are indeed, this is a source of great portion of their meals and proteins, and thus their nutritional and health benefits from the ocean, besides providing business opportunities and development opportunities for them, is quite heavy. Whereas these activities contribute to economic and oceanic economies, the challenges of balancing economic growth and protecting, ensuring sustainability of ecosystems and the societies benefiting from it remain evident. This is why there is to be a conversation, a very good conversation on and seek scientific modalities to guarantee sustainable balance between exploitation and the conservation of ocean resources. To this end, let me express my gratitude to our key partners in Indonesia, in particular the Ministry for Maritime Affairs and Investment, the Indonesia Ocean Justice Initiative for giving part to this session and facilitating this discussion. More also, the topic managing, protecting, conserving, and restoring marine and coastal ecosystems, which I think could not gather any better expertise and distinguished panel like the one before us this afternoon to guide us in the debate. The panel is a composition and envisions a confluence of science, policy, and stakeholder engagement in an effort to address both the threats, challenges to sustainable harnessing of oceans resources for human development. The ocean 2020, the UN Ocean 2020, co-hosted by the government of Kenya and Portugal, and indeed its preparatory sessions, including these Blue Talks, provides a suitable platform for sharing the much needed evidence-based policy and regulatory frameworks, and enhance the role of scientific innovation in resetting the global ocean action project, and in general, our ecosystems. It is my sincere hope that through this platform, the shared knowledge and experiences will be essential in the prediction of consequences of anticipated change actions, design mitigation, and guide adaptation. It's equally a call for those of us who are in academic institutions, those who are in policy making, those of us who are in research, to be reservoirs, to be new frontiers of discoveries, to sustain innovation, to seek solutions that will upscale transformers of science capacities, both human and non-human, for informed decision making and social engagement to achieve the 2030 Sustainable Development Goal number 14. I think at this juncture, I congratulate everybody to have convened, and thank you very much for listening to me. I look forward to a very, very informative and very focused discussion this afternoon. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and thank you everybody who's listening in.
Thank you very much. And Mars, we are now ready to address each of the different panels within the dialogue 2 about managing, protecting, conserving, and restoring marine and coastal ecosystems. We might change in our previous agenda, and so instead of starting with the first panel, first go the community engagement blue carbon project. First, we're going to once again one of the host countries to Kenya, and here from Dr. James Cairo, Chief Scientist at the Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research, a presentation about a community-based blue carbon project in Kenya. Dr. James Cairo, I will give you the floor. Thank you.
Can I share my slide? Open.
Yeah, you can either share it to yourself or we can share it for you.
If I cannot see the. If not, I'll just share from. If you can share for me so that we don't waste time, because I cannot see as if I've been given access right. Grant access in system preference. I don't know. Maybe it's a system problem. You can share for me, sir.
Sure. We're taking care of that, Dr. Cairo. Taking care of that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You can hear me well, Your Excellency. I'm really delighted to speak to you today. My name is James Cairo from the Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute, where I'm a chief scientist, but I'm also a member of the UN Decade for the UN Advisory Board. So this meeting, really, the conference, the United Nations Conference on Ocean, really falls as one of our major mission, and I'm really excited. And I really like Your Excellency, Maria, the fact that she's oceanographer and she loves mangroves. I'll be talking so much on that because that's my domain. And I'm not new to Indonesia. I've been to Bali. I've been to another place I cannot remember. I've been to your wonderful garden, the Bogo, because I worked with the C4 some times ago. So I'm really happy that I'm able to present to this morning. Next slide, please. It's always good to introduce your institution. As I said, Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute is a national research institution, was established in 1971. our mandate is to research and advise the government on the wise use of aquatic resources, of course, including mangroves. And we are the center of excellence in marine research in our region, which we are very excited. Next slide. I want to take this opportunity also to bring you why we are having the ocean science and where it has come, how far. When I look at these great leaders, you can see that we had one from Indonesia. We have His Excellency, the President of Kenya, and the rest. These are the 14 members. We are calling the high-level panel on sustainable ocean economy. This one came after the first ocean conference 2018, which was hosted by Kenya. Through that, we are able to, the world leaders were able to come together for the high-level panel with a vision of protection, production, and prosperity for our oceans. And these are the leaders who have pushed so hard to have a safe oceans. Next slide. Through this leadership, we know they have come again with the Ocean Decade Alliance. And this alliance is representing 14 coastal cities and with the whole mission of having 100% of the ocean sustainably managed. And what I like so much is the panel, and through scientific work, they have prioritized ending overfishing and illegal activities, rebuilding declining stocks, stopping plastic pollution, and you know very well there is now a new treaty on the plastic, and then cleaning the dead zone. And the message here, because people understand money better, that $1 you spend on ocean, you are likely to get $5 back. And nowhere else will get such a business. So it's really good. The oceans, if we put money in, if we put our energy in, we are likely to come back and have a sustainable future. Next slide. It is on that basis I wanted to introduce to you the background, but because my talk today is on blue carbon, and that's what I do, I want to bring you to what is really blue carbon. Whoever here blue carbon. It is really come from green. Remember, we used to talk about the green, which concur with the land. But the blue carbon, what it really means is the carbon stored by coastal wetlands, particularly the three ecosystems: mangroves, seagrasses, and salt marshes. Even open ocean have blue carbon, the seaweed have blue carbon, but because it's not easy to measure it, to report it, and to monitor it, that's why as science grow, we shall have the algae will definitely be included. But for now, we'll concentrate on these three: the blue carbon, mangrove, seagrass, and salt marshes. And my talk, I'll base a lot on mangrove. You'll see I'll be more on mangrove than seagrass, not because I don't like them, but because I want to send some message home. Next slide. Yes, if you look at the world, look at the green line, the green line around all the continent, that's what we are talking about, blue carbon ecosystems. And you can see they are concentrated across the tropics. If you look at you'll see they're concentrated across the tropic. And where the concentration of blue carbon ecosystems is in the Southeast Asia. That's where we have Indonesia, we have Thailand, we have all those countries. And we believe, those who come from science, mangrove will have evolved from the what you call the triangle there, could have evolved from the Southeast Asia, then move. So we have two types of the wild mangrove. We can always say the Indo-West Pacific, which include the mangrove of Indonesia, and then the Atlantic mangroves, which are less lower species. The highest species diversity we have will be in Asia area. The Indonesia, you have like 70 species of mangrove. But you come to East African region, we have very little, we have 9 species. West Africa and America, they have only 5 species. But I want you to look at, it's just a small line, we call it a small blue line. But when you look at it compared to their size and what they contribute is enormous. As I'll move forward. Next slide. How do you value mangrove and seagrasses? If you can protect mangrove, you'll be responding to SDG 14 particularly, but it will also be corresponding to other SDGs because you conserve the ocean, you definitely will conserve the life underwater, but you're also addressing poverty, you're addressing equity, you're creating partnership. So the value of mangrove, the value given here is not even seagrasses, is estimated like $220 per hectare a year. So you can imagine a country like Indonesia with enormous mangrove area, how much does it generate, both tangible and intangible? Next slide. This one is just to give you a perspective. My country will not be there for Your Excellency, the ambassador from Kenya. We don't have, we have very little. So, but the heroes here are Indonesia. Indonesia has 22% of the world mangroves. But look at the others. So we are among the others with 40%. So we are talking about the big countries are Indonesia, you talk about Australia, Nigeria, Brazil. This is global figures. Next slide. I want to bring you in perspective when we're talking about blue carbon. I want you to look at it. What is it, and what does it mean when we are talking about it? Carbon is the one that drives humanity. Even your body is carbon. If I hit your body, 50% of that body is carbon. So you can always imagine any living matter is made up of carbon, because carbon is a CO2 with combined with the water. In the presence of sun, you get carbohydrate, you get sugar, you get oranges, you get mangoes. So your body is blue carbon, is carbon. So, but let's look at the world. Compare terrestrial forest, tropical forest, for instance, look at where they are, and compare that with the mangrove, salt marshes, and seagrass. So the mangrove, seagrass, and the blue carbon ecosystem, we call them their superhero. What you are seeing, the dark green, that is what is stored below ground. And that's really most important, because that's the carbon that later is converted to oil, for instance, coal, for instance. So the carbon, although mangrove are very little, but look at how much they are keeping below ground. So it means when you degrade them through aquaculture, over-harvesting, infrastructure, you also lose that treasure. It evaporates. Yeah. So look at where the tropical forest is. And that tropical forest is one of the most productive forests, like Amazon. The body of forests, those are the cold country forests. Next slide. So this is extracted from by our team's work. You can see, because mangrove, tidal forest, tidal marshes, and seagrasses, look at their area. The area is not much. Like mangrove all over the world, we are talking about 15 million hectares. Seagrass is like maximum is 40. Nobody even know how much we have. It's between 2.2 to 40 million hectares. So seagrasses, the same, 17.7 to 60. But their carbon stock is the most important. The total carbon, look at mangrove, although they are few, they have that 1.2 million tons, megagrams tons. So you can see when you convert mangrove, the column I want to look at is the column number 3, the conversion rate. How much mangrove are we losing? We are losing mangrove 7 to 3%. Seagrass, tidal marshes 1 to 2, seagrasses 4 to 2.6. So we normally know the loss of mangrove is highest compared to any natural system. How much are we losing? How much are you emitting when you lose mangrove? Look at when you are losing 143.3 million tons of CO2. To give you in perspective, that emission level is higher than emission of Portugal. Portugal emission level, if you Google, is 69. But because you don't see mangrove, you don't see this gas, it will be evaporating, and the repercussion is it creates carbon, the global warming. Next slide. This is why I'm bringing you the innovativeness, what Kenya has done. I know most of the people will know Kenya because of marathon. And they define marathon is where everybody run, but Kenya win. If you have Jakarta one marathon, we shall always win. You go to Portugal marathon, we win. But we have another innovation we call Mikoko Pamoja. Mikoko Pamoja is we are planting mangrove for climate community biodiversity benefits. This is the first project on Earth to benefit from carbon trading. We were able to plant, restore, and protect those forests for the benefit of the people, biodiversity, and the like. Next slide. I indicated that why it's very critical to protect mangrove is because when mangrove are healthy, they store a lot of carbon. But when they are like this, when the degraded system you see, and that one, you fly over Jakarta, you fly over Indonesia, you see where the aquaculture activities are. When mangrove are degraded, they lose so much carbon, and that becomes a concern. So they also, when they are healthy, they support coastal communities around the world. But the degraded coastal ecosystem release so much carbon, as I have indicated. So, but what we are trying now to push for, and I am really happy that Indonesia and Kenya have included mangrove in their NDCs, we want to have mangrove can be part of climate change mitigation and adaptation. Next slide. So what Mikoko Pamoja is doing is trying to bring, Mikoko means mangrove, Pamoja means together. Those who want to do the Kiswahili lessons. So Mikoko Pamoja is working together for the benefit of mangrove. It's the first payment for ecosystem service project in the world to benefit, to store, to protect and store mangrove, to restore and protect mangrove through carbon trading. It's a community led with the objective of restoration and protection mangrove through sales of carbon credit. We are accredited, we are verified by Plan Vivo standard, and every year the community in Gazi Bay, where I'm based, they sell 3,000 tons of CO2. Because it was a pilot area, this is a very small amount. So when you're saying 3,000, you're selling one ton is $10 to $20, depending on the market rate. So it's a pilot area, but now it has expanded. Next slide. What you do, it's very simple, and this is what's happening everywhere on Earth. We restore degraded area, and then we avoid deforestation. We come with alternative livelihood. We do enhance surveillance of that to avoid illegal activities, and then we raise education and awareness, telling community mangrove are better there than not there, because they are good for fishery, they're good for shoreline protection. That two functions is one important one. But now, because they store so much of this carbon, that you pay them an incentive to continue protecting. And then we do forest monitoring. Next slide. I'm almost there. I know the time was not enough. We are based in South Coast. We are protecting a very small part of the Kenyan forest, only 117. And in this 117, we have a forest, we have left it for avoided deforestation. So no harvesting is there. Then we are area that we have already planted, activity area 2. And every year, the community is planting 0.4 hectare. I know you're planting more, but we want now to show you how can you make a business case out of it. Next slide. After that, so we do the vegetation monitoring. Every year, you come and measure the diameter. When you have the diameter, the tree will be increasing. As the tree is increasing, it is increasing carbon. So you are not harvesting the tree. Next. We measure biodiversity, because when you plant mangrove or you protect mangrove, fish come, crabs come, and other animals. Next. And then we have somebody to assess the impact, we call them social impact officer, who will go around and say, how is the project being managed? How is the community livelihood changing? Next slide. How do we share benefit? all the carbon sold is sold to international market. It's only 6% of the money that is retained because every 5 years we have an independent verifier. But 32% of this money will go direct to the community, what we call community livelihood and service, community benefit. We have that 6%, which is the one that lands the cashews, the daily activities in the forest. 5% is for stationary, 21% pays the salaries. And then you can see it's more encrusted, everything is within the village. Next slide. So I show you what changes can be. This is how the open wells were. Next. Through the project, you're able to buy pumps, you're able to put water, this is not government money. This is I always tell the community, this is your money because you have sold a product called carbon dioxide in the international market. When you do that, you buy pumps, you buy water, and then next, then you're able to have water kiosks because some kiosks are far. You have schools, water in the schools. So far, then you have you have employed the guards. You have put water in 3 schools, which with 1,000 students and a local dispensary, which is a good impact. People want water, and that one reduces the diseases. Next slide. You come to education. Remember, this is a government school, and so the schools, they need a lot of textbook because the children, they need to have good education. So what the project will do, we provide the books, and we'll provide furniture, we'll provide desks, we'll provide games kit. Next slide. You can see here, the blue line is what they need. The yellow line is what the government is able to provide that year. The green line, it may not be enough, but the project, that's what Mikoko Pamoja is applying to the school. And this one is increasing as the demand goes on. Next slide. And then we are able to make it's like a learning center. We have people coming to visit. We have teachers being trained. We have international conferences. So it becomes a learning lesson, and this is one of our key objectives. Next slide. Then through the project, you integrate it with other livelihood. We have ecotourism facility. We have those employed to learn small businesses. So 32 are indirectly employed since 2016. 4 are permanently employed. We have a coordinator, assistant coordinator, and a community scout. All these is engraved. And you remember, it's only a very small area we are protecting. Next slide. Because of these, because of being able to interpret the community, environment, livelihood, biodiversity, the project got the Equator Prize 2017. And these are the coordinators in New York receiving the prize. Next slide. I'm almost finishing. But what's the building block? How can a project like this work in Indonesia? I know mangrove of Indonesia, wonderful. I know that you have laws and protect them. So, but how can we do? What has made Mikoko Pamoja work is a community commitment. It's a strong science because we are a scientific institution. We have a very good government support, and then the network, the international network. If you have those ingredients, you'll definitely have a good equivalent of a project in your country. Next slide. Because of that, you see, when you do good, other people see. We started now bringing some support from really high-ranking people. This is the Leonardo DiCaprio. He came and supported Mikoko Pamoja. We were able to expand it to another village. In the other village, rather than selling 3,000 tons, we're earning earning $30,000. We have moved. We are selling 6,000. And we have the 6,000 tons, they are earning $50,000 US dollars per year through the DiCaprio Foundation. Next slide. So what's the take-home message for you? Mikoko Pamoja is all about people living in harmony with mangrove. And all the carbon credits are owned by the community. Mikoko Pamoja is a triple win to climate, community, and biodiversity. And the success of Mikoko Pamoja is being replicated elsewhere in Kenya and the world. We have it in Mozambique, we have it in Madagascar, our neighboring country, Tanzania, and the rest.
Asante. Wacha niadresi hii blue economy balance. Asante.
I'm finishing, and this is almost the last. So if you were to do the similar project, why do I feel Indonesia can also have a Mikoko Pamoja type project? You have a very good supportive laws and registration on forest, environment, and fisheries, and that is the one you need. You have a very high dependence on mangrove for both subsistence and commercial. And then the national and international commitment. I know Indonesia, you have included blue carbon in your NDC. And then you have national and international experts. I tell you, Indonesia is so lucky. They have institutions like CIFO, the Center for Forest Research, and they are the world reference center for when it comes to blue carbon. So there's no reason why we cannot have it. That's right, please. This is my last one. So when you come to Ocean Conference, before that, when you come to Ocean Conference in what is the importance of this Ocean Conference? I know, Your Excellency, you already mentioned it, but I wanted to also highlight the fact that in the Ocean Conference, which is co-hosted by Kenya and Portugal, it will have time to enhance awareness of our maritime space in Kenya and the potential of a sustainable blue economy. We shall increase partnership, investment, collaborative, and commitment. There will be a partnership between government, private sector, and civil society. This will accelerate economic growth, job creation, and poverty alleviation. We should also be telling the world that we can export knowledge of creating successful blue carbon projects. We shall amplify the ongoing effort of protecting and conserving the environment and aquatic resources in Kenya. My last, and thank you so much. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cairo, for your presentation. It was interesting indeed, a very interesting insight on Kenya's experience and also on the other for Indonesia and other countries. Now I'll give the floor to Dr. Luis Caterino. Dr. Luis Caterino is a researcher on tropical flora and vegetation at the Center for Ecology, Evolution, and Environmental Changes at the University of Lisbon. And he will be doing a presentation on the mangroves of Guinea, West Africa, so another African experience based on a project which he co-authored with Mr. Bukar Injai. Dr. Luis Caterino, I'll give you the floor.
Thank you. Okay. Are you seeing my screen? Okay.
We are.
Okay. Yes. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
And my voice also?
I can hear.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning and good afternoon also. And thank you for the invitation to be here. I'm here to talk a little bit about the mangroves of Guinea-Bissau. Guinea-Bissau is a small country in West Africa, and this presentation was made by myself and my Guinean colleague Bukar Injai. So Guinea-Bissau is a small country of about 36,000 square kilometers, and with a large part occupied by mangroves. In fact, the coastal zones of the country, including a group of islands, the Bijagos Islands, have large patches of mangroves and also several protected areas include important patches of mangroves in West Africa, like the Cacheu Park in the north of the country, with many square kilometers of mangroves. The mangroves in West Africa and the Atlantic mangroves are not so rich in terms of species and maybe in biomass as the East African and the Asian mangroves, but they are very important as we will see. In Guinea-Bissau, there are 6 main mangrove species and several other species at mangrove edges. And the mangroves and the coastal areas are very important both in socioeconomy and in terms of ecology of coastal areas. The mangroves in West Africa and in Guinea-Bissau have some 6 species from the sea to the earth. We have 3 species of Rhizophora. The most important here is Rhizophora mango. We have in the upper zones of mangrove other 3 main species, from which Avicennia germinans is the most important one. And in the mangrove edges, there are several species of including palms and shrubs and herbs and trees, of course. Some species in the mangroves and mangrove edges in Guinea-Bissau, and now from earth to sea, are, for instance, this fern Acousticum aureum, Dalbergia ecastaphyllum, 2 palms, one of them very important in the country and in the world, Elaeis guineensis, Phoenix reclinata, Terminalis cutifora, a tree typical from the edges of mangroves. In the upper mangrove zones, we have the most important species, Avicennia germinans, but also Conocarpus erectus and the Laguncularia racemosa. And in the lower mangrove belts, we have 3 Rhizophora species, namely Rhizophora mango, the most important and the most frequent one, Rhizophora harrisoni, and Rhizophora racemosa, the one that grows to greater size. The people and mangroves in Guinea-Bissau. Most of the population in the country lives in the coastal areas and depend on the natural resources of coastal areas. And one important use of mangrove ecosystems is to crop rice, the so-called mangrove rice. It is made in the coastal areas by cutting the mangroves and by making ingenious system of dikes to prevent the salt water to reach the paddies. The mangrove rice is the mangrove is the staple food in the country, and the mangrove rice is probably the largest system of cropping rice in Guinea-Bissau. About other ecosystem services from mangroves. This slide is based in a master's thesis from a Guinean student, and she worked in two protected areas, the Cacheu Park and Cantanhede Park, and asked the women. In fact, they are the women that harvest products, food products from mangroves, and he asked for the food products, the edible animals that are harvested in the mangroves. So there are 10 species harvested by women, but the most important one are the oysters. And the oysters are harvested both for self-consumption and to sell in three main types of products: fresh oysters with shell, fresh oysters without shell, and dried or smoked oysters. So oysters are very important as an ecosystem service in the mangroves of Guinea-Bissau, in the coastal areas of Guinea-Bissau. For family income, the women obtain a large part of its family income from harvesting and selling oysters, and also for food security, because in fact the oysters can be the cheaper protein source in those areas. A little bit about blue carbon. The biomass in West African mangroves, we know it is they have less biomass than the ones from, for instance, for Kenya or maybe Indonesia, but they are very important, and they can have a role on the protection of coastal areas, and also in giving revenue, maybe giving money or better conditions of life for people. The Guinea-Bissau mangroves have a great potential to avoid CO2 emissions, and so the protection of mangroves can be a cost-effective way to mitigate climate change. It is needed to mobilize climate change mitigation and adaptation mechanism, and we have a good example from Kenya. But in the country, it is needed capacity building in order to accomplish the rules and mechanisms to verification mechanisms in terms of blue carbon. And so we continue working in Guinea-Bissau and with Guinea-Bissau people and institutions. And for instance, now we have in the scope of research project, we are doing a long-term vegetation dynamics study in 3 coastal areas of Guinea-Bissau from 1953 to the present, and also we will study the sea level rise scenarios in a particular zone of the coastal Guinea-Bissau in order to assess the the effects of the sea level rise, and maybe to propose viable adaptation or mitigation mechanisms. And so it is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luís Catarino, for this very interesting presentation. Had two of the two coasts of Africa and the very own diversity that we can find here in Southeast Asia. And so are being built. We're a little behind schedule, so what we'll do the next panel, and then we will open for questions at the end of the three panels. So for now, we're going to that which would be our first panel, and with governmental insight on managing and promoting, storing, protect systems. In this case, managing and promoting the protection of the marine ecosystem. And I are by presenting Engineer Nuno Banza, the president of the Portuguese Institute for the Conservation of Forests of Portugal. I will give the floor to.
Good morning, everyone. I don't know if you confirm you to me. There's some. Can you confirm you are listening to me, please?
Yeah, we can hear. Just going to ask someone else who only with their microphone on, but we cannot identify here.
Probably we kindly ask for the other people to take them off, but I think they're done already. At least I'm not listening anymore. So thank you very much for your invitation. I will try to make a short statement about, regarding these issues of the protection of the sea. And I think it would be nice to share with you something about the importance of the Natura 2000 network at sea. And I think, I'll try to share some of ideas on this. The Natura 2000 network is an ecological network with an European scope, resulting on the application of the directives from Birds Directive and Habitat Directive of the Council. And these directives have provided a normative framework for the identified need to designate a network of classified areas, with the objective of ensuring the maintenance or, if necessary, the restoration of habitats and protection of species, defined in the respective annex and about the migratory birds species, seeking mainly to guarantee that these species and habitats have a favorable conservation status within their natural range. Well, the Natura 2000 compromises area classified as a special conservation zone and areas classified as special protection areas. In Portugal, the implementation of the Natura 2000 began in a more pragmatic way in 1997, with the creation of the first national list of sites of community of importance, which was followed in 1999 by the designation of the first special protection areas for birds, having since then expanded the initial cast. Like most European Union countries, classification of these areas began with a strong trend towards protection inland and coastal territories, which led EU, mainly from 2006 onwards, to encourage the extension of the Natura 2000 to the marine environment, recognizing that this mission would have to deal with specificities of the marine ecosystem that would imply equally unique approaches and tools. aspects ranging from the absence of property rights and the prevalence of the domain of state competence, in which community and international rights are found present to knowledge and with many gaps and an overly broad definition of natural habitats. The recognition of the insufficient representation of this natural infrastructure in the marine environment made the European Commission and the member states to seek it, to complete it, which led to its extension offshore when initially it contained mainly coastal classified areas. A set of obligations arising from the directives mentioned above, applicable to the species and habitats identified in their annexes, were then transposed into the national regulatory framework. Prepare proposals for sites of community importance for habitat types, establish conservation measures for the annexed species applicable to the space they use, taking into account the significance of that space for their life cycle. Take appropriate measures so that the collection and capture of other species on the habitats in the wild, as well as their exploitation, are compatible with their maintenance in a favorable state of conservation. Contrary to the strategy adopted by the EU through these directives, followed to some extent by the OSPAR Convention, supported by lists of protected species and habitats, and subject to protection measures, the Convention of Biological Diversity, on the other hand, does not identify species or specific habitats, generally referring to the protection of the marine ecosystem. Along the same lines, the Water Framework Directives and the Marine Strategy cover the protection of ecosystems in an equally generic way, articulating with the areas of Natura 2000 network and with the OSPAR Convention. Other typologies of classification of protected areas with relevance in the marine environment should also be noted, which pursue different but complementary objectives. The protected areas designated either under national law as well as the national laws and regulations from the autonomous regions that made the necessary adaptations to go in force with it. In the national administrative context, it's important to note that the competence associated with the marine environment are coordinated now at the Ministry of Economy and the Sea, with the emphasis on guiding nature, the national strategy, and for the sea. Nevertheless, the conservation of nature and biodiversity is a direct responsibility of the Ministry of the Environment and Climate Action through the ICNO, the board and the organism where I lead, and which exercise the functions of national authority for the conservation of nature and biodiversity, established in its regular in the legal law. So here, the guiding document of the National Strategy for Conservation of Nature and Biodiversity is highlighted. In this area, ICNF mission should be highlighted. Ensure that the management of the national network of protected areas and promote the preparation, evaluation, and review of the planning and management programs for the national network of protected areas, in conjunction with the Directorate General for Natural Resources, Security and Maritime Services, and the Portuguese Institute for Sea and Atmosphere. In the case of coastal marine protected areas, and to collaborate with these entities in the case of the oceanic. The next steps defined for the period 21 to 27 are reflected in the priority action framework for Natura 2000 in mainland Portugal and in the adjacent maritime space. Designation of classified areas and management planning, although the specific protected areas network is currently considered to be complete in the marine space adjacent to the continent, the need for scientific confirmation of the representativeness and sufficiency of the current list and limits of the special conservation areas still persists. It's a process of elaboration of management plans that group the necessary measures for these specific areas that we are enforcing. Increasing the area, structure, and composition of the habitats of the sandbanks with vascular vegetation and marine and zoosteres, including populations of Gorgonine and Laminaria. Well, we are pursuing that through the installation of environmentally friendly moorings, bottom conditioning pilot tests, and planting on vascular plants. In this context, the Nature 2000 network plays a very important role in the protection of the marine environment, but either because of its specificity or because of the need for evolution in adapting to the singularities of the marine environment that it still needs, it must be seen in conjunction with the other conservation strategies and approach, nationally and internationally. Portugal, with its vast marine area that's about 40 times more the land area, that stands out for the enormous relevance at European level conferred by its biodiversity value, value in climate regulation, including carbon sequestration, value in natural living and mineral resources, and value in various economical activities, including also tourism. This quantitative and qualitative dimension gives Portugal an opportunity, but also a special responsibility in the definitive inversion of the past views of the immense and inexhaustible sea, whose alleged endless capacity wants to absorb our waste. Paradoxically, we perceive it increasingly better today that are returned to us, for example, through microplastics in the living beings we feed on, or by the number of commercial compromised population stock. The Natura 2008 Sea, along with the multiple strategies and instruments for the protection of marine environment, must be seen as the substrate that allows us to face the serious challenges of creating the conditions so that the relationship of occupation and uses of the marine environment is built very different from the one we have to live today in the terrestrial environment, above all by humbly learning from the mistakes made on land and proceeding in a regulated and sustainable way at the sea. So thank you very much. This is a statement we would like to share with you, and I hope that the whole discussion today will lead us to have a very, very strong and profitable discussion in the conference, the Oceans Conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Engineer Guanza. We indeed hope that the UN Ocean Conference will continue our conversation. Let me also take to ask one thing from those who can stay with us until the end, is that you don't send us immediately after the end of this Blue Talks, because we'd like to take a group photo. So
end of fight.
If you can, remain connected so we can take that photo for memory. Now I'm going to give the floor to Dr. Sri Tantri Arundhati for the Indonesian governmental perspective. Dr. Arundhati is the Director for Climate Change Adaptation at the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. Dr. Arundhati, I give you the floor.
Thank you for the Embassy of Portugal and also EUG for hosting this important meeting. I would like to share Indonesian experience about climate change policy on marine and coastal ecosystem. Next, please. Indonesia, through our president, we've already committed in climate change. We already have a ratification, and also we've already developed our NDC. Because in our perspective, that climate change is a mitigation is same important as adaptation. So through our NDC, we commit our emission reduction, and also how we also can do the adaptation as well, like for climate resilience. So after the in NDC, we also give our updated NDC, which is an elaborated of our NDC regarding the adaptation into our key program, strategy, and also action. So afterwards, we also have a commitment with our long-term strategy and low carbon climate resilience. That we also already familiar with what the LTSL-CCR 2050. And just recently, we have our president degree about how is the implementation of the to achieve the target of mitigation and adaptation as we already commit before, and also regarding the carbon economic value. Usually we call it the carbon tax, which is one of the tools for how to reduce the emission reduction. Next, please. Okay, so our president also already called an extraordinary measure to tackle climate change. He already said that all countries must meet their national determined contribution to combat climate change, and Indonesia has updated our NDC to increase resilience and adaptability. And all countries must mobilize all the potential community to raise awareness in dealing with and taking action. So Indonesia has engaged the community to mitigate climate change through the Climate Village program to cover 20,000 villages by 2024, and also in related with the adaptation and mitigation. And the third is our country must strengthen global partnership, and Indonesia prioritize capacity building cooperation in tackling climate change for our friends in the Pacific. And of course, developed nation must fulfill their commitment. In the fourth, President Jokowi also mentioned that all countries must continue to promote green development for a better world. Next, please. Okay, maybe we already know that the impact of climate change, it will be on the different sector. It's whether it's on our infrastructure, in our agriculture, forestry, and also the water resilience, our health, and the coastal, and also the small island as well. So the climate change will make it worse if we don't do anything. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah. Regarding the IPCC 6 assessment report, the AER6, the ocean surface temperature will project increase, and the marine heat wave also more frequent, intense, and longer. And also the global sea level rose faster in the 20th century than in any prior century over the last 3 millennia. The sea level extremes, more frequent sea level extreme event, and also ocean acidification and deoxygenation be strength and deeper. So it is very challenging for us as a country that is surrounded by ocean, and we are depending also our tourism with the biodiversity of the ocean. So climate change, if we don't do anything with the climate change, and it will harm our livelihoods in the future. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah. So why should Indonesia commit? Indonesia is a archipelago country. We according to our geographic location, we have about 17,000 islands. Only five island is a big, we have a big five island, but the other is small island. And we have high carbon stock and also energy and mineral resource as well. Indonesia is, as I mentioned about, we are vulnerable to natural disasters. We are on the ring of fire, and also we will have climate change impact as well. And also, this is a strategic consideration in achieving climate resilience related to food, water, and energy. So because as you know that I've already mentioned that the climate change have an impact in many other things, and it will impact also our basic necessities as like food, water, and energy. Next, please. So, as I already mentioned that we put our in our updated national determined contribution is uh, regarding the mitigation and also the adaptation. Our three goals of adaptation is how we can have our economic resilience, economic, social and livelihood, uh, and also ecosystem and landscape resilience. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah. So regarding the ocean, for adaptation in our updated NDC, we refer to Decision 9 Section A1. So for the adaptation, and also we put the ocean as our commitment regarding for the climate resilience. Next, please. So this is as a it's in our next for the key program strategy and action. We put the coastal zone protection as our key program in our update NDC, and we also put this our strategy how to mainstreaming adaptation policy and programs on coastal zone and ocean, and also development climate resilient coastal zone. And also we put also how is our action, such as the implementation of ecosystem-based adaptation in coastal zone development, implementation of integrated management of mangrove ecosystem, and also enhanced coastal zone and ocean pollution control, including marine litter and plastic debris. And the others is also how to development of climate resilient coastal zone is the action is increase communication, education, and public awareness on the importance of coastal ecosystem protection in natural disaster impact reduction, and also restoration of degraded coastal zone as essential ecosystem, and improve livelihood of communities living in depending on coastal area. So this is one important key program in our updated NDC that already we submit to the UNFCCC. Next, please. Okay. As already mentioned, that we already put in our long-term strategy and low carbon climate resilience 2050 about the ocean and the role of the ocean and integrated terrestrial and also marine ecosystem management and conservation. This is regarding the mitigation and adaptation ambition in our long-term strategy. Next, please. So we also rely that we also aware that the role of ocean and integrated terrestrial and marine ecosystem management and as it is, like the climate change impact on ocean, it will increase the surface surface of sea temperature. It will process 0.65 in 2030 and also 1.1 in 2050 relative to the surface temperature of 2000. And then the sea level rise tends to increase due to climate change, average below 1 meter, and the frequent extreme climate events will increase in the future. So as we know that role of ocean is as a logistic service to connect all islands in our country, and also it's a culture, socio-economic life, and also national security for regarding the country itself. And also the COVID-19 recovery program is we put the during the COVID, we have a program what we call PEN 2020, which increase the capacity of the people in coastal area by encouraging them to plant the mangrove in the specific area to give them apa namanya strength in combating with the COVID-19. So in Indonesia, the ocean is like two sided point for have the modalities, regulatory framework for action, and also related ecosystem. And also Indonesia foresee the synergy effect of the UNFCCC, CBD, and also the UNCCCD. And regarding the mitigation, we initiated research on blue carbon, which is on ecosystem, consisting of mangrove, seagrass, and coral reef. And mangrove has been included in the national greenhouse gases inventory under wetland category, the establishment of FREL for RED+, and the estimation of RED+ result. Next, please. So we regarding the community base, we have a climate village program. This is a nationwide program managed by Ministry of Environment and Forestry. The program is to encourage the involvement of community and other stakeholders in strengthening climate change adaptation capacity and reducing greenhouse gases emission as well, and also acknowledge climate change adaptation and mitigation effort that has been done, which can improve the welfare at the local level according to site-specific condition. We have our guidance in how the people or the community can improve their how to say to face the climate change by doing the action of action for mitigation and adaptation on, and also how the community can how to say doing this action, whether it's adaptation and whether it's mitigation. And the other is also we have the guidance for how to implement this kind of program. Next, please. Okay, this is the location of Proclim or Climate Village program. The number is now is about 3,000 to 270, and the coastal area is up about 294 location in under 3,270. Next, please. So this is the example of coastal area protection as climate change adaptation action. Next, please. So the other is about the role of blue carbon in the national determined contribution. The blue carbon refers to carbon dioxide removed from the atmosphere by the world coastal ocean ecosystem, mostly is mangrove, salt marshes, seagrass, and potentially macroalgae through plant growth and the accumulation and burial of organic matter in the soil. So which blue carbon could be incorporated into NDC so far? Mostly is mangrove forest because all requirement is in place and part of the and this is the part deforestation and forest degradation scheme according to IPCC 2013 supplement guideline. So blue carbon is a new potential for reducing further GHG emission in achieving NDC target as well as for the long-term strategy, which is now we have our presidential regulation 98/2021. Next, please. So this is the state of the art of Indonesia blue carbon. We have the mangrove, carbon storage, and also seagrass. We've already calculate. Then Indonesia coastal carbon storage is about 3.3 15 giga carbon. Yeah. Next, please. So Indonesia has the largest mangrove cover in the world, and it's almost 20%, 3.49 million hectare of the global total mangrove area, which is 16.53 million hectare. 43 species of tropical mangroves are found in Indonesia, or it represents 80% of tropical mangrove in the world. Next, please. And mangrove has been incorporated into national GHG inventory. 2013 supplement to the 26 IPCC guideline for national greenhouse gas inventory is wetland. And then based on IPCC supplement guideline, mangrove as part of AFOLU. Parties as encouraged develop lesson learned and experience on GHG inventory and mitigation action. And the carbon pool in mangrove ecosystem is above ground biomass, below ground biomass, and also soil mangrove. Next, please. So this is the example of emission reduction or of mangrove via red scheme and emission reduction project document in East Kalimantan province. Next, please. So this is the photo of the mangrove deforestation. Next, please. So mangrove forest has incorporated into emission reduction project document through several steps. Analysis of drivers of deforestation and degradation in mangrove forest, and analysis of drivers underlying causes of deforestation and degradation in mangrove forest, and also analysis of reference level, historical emission in mangrove forest, and also establish the emission reduction program to address the drivers of deforestation and degradation in mangrove forests, and also establish the safeguard to address impact of emission reduction programs in mangrove forests. Next, please. So this is the reduction of emission from mangrove soil. It is expected that emission from mangrove soil can be reduced by 25% in 2024, and the total emission reduction from mangrove project action are expected to be 0.8 million CO2 equivalent, ton CO2 equivalent. Next, please. So this is the national level challenge to include blue carbon in NDC. Rate of degradation of coastal wetland ecosystem, whether it's mangrove and seagrass, is higher than the rate of rehabilitation. And limited information and data availability on seagrass and other blue carbon ecosystem, including activity data and methodology to calculate emission factor, etc. Then land tenure conflict in mangrove converted to aquaculture. and the implementation of co-benefit and outcome for livelihood. Next, please. So we've already put the long-term strategy and in long carbon and climate resilient 2050 about the ocean, as already mentioned. Next, please. And this is the agenda and result of COP26. That a new issue. The ocean climate nexus is one of a new issue to keep 1.50 alive, and also ocean in the Glasgow Pact in COP26, that the outcome is how to strengthen the commitment of on preventing the increase of global temperature 1.50 degree Celsius and net zero emission around 2050. Next, please. Next, please. Next. Oh. Next, please. Do you have any? Is it already? Is it freeze or? Sorry. Okay, so this is our next development, the mangrove ecosystem. We we want to identify and compile of activity data on BGB mangrove and develop a methodology of soil carbon, tier 2 for data activity and emission factor, and also calculating non-CO2 of AGB from forest fire and pit fire, and research on pit decomposition of mangrove ecosystem, which is based on high of water level. So for the seagrass ecosystem, we want to develop a complete map of Indonesia seagrass. That is one map of seagrass that cover all Indonesia coastal area and time series. And the second, identify and develop an activity data and emission factor for seagrass ecosystem. And C is research on other potential blue carbon. So this is our next development for regarding the blue carbon. Next, please. Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry if I'm taking too much time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Arondati. You didn't take too much time. We're quite on schedule. Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation on the Indonesian government perspective. Now we will move on towards our last panel, and then we will open for questions. I know I've seen that in the chat we already have one question for two of our speakers. We'll first hear what our last two speakers have to say, and then we'll open the floor for anyone else who wants to participate. In the meantime, if you want, you can go on writing questions in the chat, and then we'll read them at the end of the three panels. Our third panel of the day connects somehow with the one we just finished. This was the government's perspective. Now we're going to hear our two speakers talking about policy planning, governance enhancement towards more effective marine ecosystems. We'll begin with Dr. Emmanuel Gonçalves, who is a chief scientist and a member of the board of directors of Oceanos, a researcher at MARE, Marine and Environment Sciences Center, and associate professor at Instituto Universitário ISPA of Portugal. And he will do a presentation on protecting, promoting, and valuing blue natural capital, the Oceano Azul Foundation approach. Dr. Manuel, I'll give you the floor now.
Thank you very much, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, wherever you are. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today. And thank you very much for the invitation for the Oceano Azul Foundation to be present in this session. I'm going to share my screen that I hope you can now see. Is this okay?
It's okay, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. And so I'm going to start first by saying how deeply, what a deep pleasure it is for me to be here and talking about fantastic countries such as Indonesia. And several of the pictures you see on this image were taken on your amazing biodiverse countries, especially underwater, but not only underwater. And I'm going to talk to you about the work we do and the vision we have for the challenges we are facing. The Oceano Azul Foundation is a Portuguese-based international foundation that has as motto from the ocean's point of view. So we try to bring to the policy arena the science that backs up the needed action from the point of view of the ocean, because we think that this point of view is lacking in many international discussions, and the UN Ocean Conference is going to be a great opportunity to do exactly that. So we try to work into this nexus of both ocean and climate and economy conservation, and I'll explain this a bit in a minute. And we work around three concepts: the blue generation, the blue natural capital, and the blue networks. And I'll try also to very briefly explain to you why we do this. Our starting point is science. And so we now have enough information to act, and especially at the UN level, all these reports that have come out since 2018 from both the climate science, the IPCC reports, but also from the biodiversity science, the IPBES 2019 report, shows us clearly that we are facing two existential crises. On one hand, we have a climate emergency, because we know that we have a very short window of opportunity to act if we want to avoid the worst predictions of climate changes. But we also have a species extinction crisis in our hands, with 1 million species in risk of disappearing in the next 2 decades if we continue our ways, if we continue the ways that we are doing. And so essentially, if we look at these two topics that were a result of our development model, and we have a development model where for us to have human development, we need to have nature destruction, which is what the sciences show us. Now we need to think about how to change this. And if we think about these two challenges, on the climate, the ocean has a big role to play, not only because it's just because of the ocean that the climate, the planet is still inhabited, because 90% of the excess heat is going to the ocean, which is becoming warmer, but also 1/3 of the CO2 that we put in the atmosphere, it goes to the ocean, that is becoming more acidic, and also because of pollution is becoming with less oxygen. And so the science shows us this. We have a warmer ocean. We know that the CO2, when it goes down, it acidifies the ocean, which is a problem for many marine organisms, such as corals and others, with predictions of significant changes through the chemical changes in the water, in the communities, in the ocean for the next decades to come. And this new information we had in this report released by IUCN, that overall the ocean already lost around 2% of its oxygen. And for some species, such as, for instance, tuna or billfish, which are high in energy species in terms of muscle demand, they are not even able now to go to the depths they used to go, because there's not enough oxygen down there to feed their muscles. And so we are seeing these changes not in the future, we are seeing these changes right now, and they have been documented by science that is showing, in the terms of climate, these exact trends and issues. In terms of species, we also are gathering enough information from the scientific point of view to see that in the ocean, we have a big problem. Not only around 30% of the ocean remains intact, which means that we'll have all the main components of the ocean there, but also a huge percentage, more than 2/3 of the ocean, is highly impacted today by a multitude of factors. Of course, overfishing being the biggest one, but climate change, pollution, and others are cumulatively impacting the ocean at the global scale. And for some components of the ocean, we have the data showing that we have left in the ocean less than 10% of, for instance, the top predators, because we have wiped out everything else. So 90% of these top predators are not in the ocean anymore. And so if we want to sum up all the scientific information that we have in a simple message for decision makers, this is the message. And there's no way around this message. We have the science to show that we are destroying the planet, we are destroying the ocean, and so we know we cannot afford anymore to say that we don't have information, enough information to act. So if we know, the question is, what are we going to do about it? And what are the solutions? What is the way forward? We know that we need to change our economic model. We know that we need to stop destroying nature in order to have human development. And we also know that there are a number of solutions right now that we can use. Marine protected areas are one of the best solutions to protect what's left, but also to recover the ocean, because we know that when these areas are fully protected, when they are well established, when they are well financed, when they are well integrated in the communities, they produce results. So what you see in this image is what happened when you set up a marine protected area. You'll have a higher biomass of species, you have higher individual of those species, you have more biodiversity, so you can recover the ocean. The science that shows us that we have destroyed the ocean also shows us that we have solutions to recover that ocean, and marine protected areas are one of the best solutions we have at hand. Very recently, late last year, we have contributed to the publication of this paper in the journal Science called the MPA Guide, which is essentially a framework to show us what we need to do and how we need to do it when we establish marine protected areas. Because although we know that they work, we also know, one, that we only have protected less than 8% of the ocean, and of that, less than 3% is fully protected. And two, many of these marine protected areas are not working. They are not being well implemented. They are not being well protected. And so this framework gives us the right tools to set these areas right, to make sure that they produce the benefits that we say they should produce for communities, for societies, for all of us. And one of an important axis of this MPA guide is the levels of protection. And so essentially what you see here on the left is where we came from. We came from an ocean full of life, full of biodiversity. In the middle, you have where we are today. The present status of the ocean is one of depletion. We are working in degraded ecosystems at the global scale. And on the right, you have 4 different types of outcomes, depending on how protected the ocean will be. So if you establish fully protected areas, you would expect to recover the whole system. This is what you see in the first column. If you protected these areas with high protection, which means that you start to allow some extraction, although very low level, you pretty much do the same, although some components will not be there. But once you start including extraction inside the protected areas, which is what you see in the lightly and the minimally protected areas, you are not going to have the outcomes that one would expect from protection. And this is very important to clarify, because it's okay if we establish a lightly protected area, but we should not say to people that we are doing the same, or we are expecting that area to perform the same as a fully protected, because it will not. And due to the current status of the ocean, what we need to focus on is on the quality of protection, and we need fully or highly protected areas in order for us to be able to achieve the recovery that we need. And they work. This is a dive I did a few years ago on Cabo Pulmo in Mexico, and this area was completely depleted about 20 years ago. And the community decided to establish a fully protected area there, and this is how it is now. An ocean full of life, an ocean fully recovered. Now I'm going very briefly to drive you through a couple of the programs that the Oceano Azul Foundation has been working with and how we are trying to implement these solutions in the real world. One of the biggest programs we have is the Blue Azores. It's a partnership between the government of the Azores region, which is an autonomous region of Portugal, the Oceano Azul Foundation, and the Wade Foundation and Institute, an American partner that works with us there. But it's a larger partnership where local scientists from the University of the Azores, also National Geographic Pristine Seas and others are helping us to drive this process forward. And this started with a vision by the three partners where we think that blue natural capital needs to be value promoted and protected in order for us to achieve the goals. And the government decided to fully protect 15% of the EZ, which is around 150,000 square kilometers, with 30% of that ocean protected. So 15% fully protected at least, with 30% target coming right now. So what we did is that we brought all these partners together. We partner with the local institutions that have lots of knowledge, that are doing the research there. And we also brought all these partners to do, for instance, scientific expeditions, such as the ones that you're seeing here. And in these scientific expeditions, what we try to do is to compile the existing information and also to do a quick assessment from the tidal areas to the deep sea that can give us a strong perception about the status of the environment in different regions, in different areas. From these expeditions, from this science, we produce reports. These reports advise the government for action, and that action makes concrete through participatory process with stakeholders and through deeply scientific engagement in these processes. So very briefly, what you see here is the current network of marine protected areas in the EEZ of the Azores, less than 5% as we speak. Most of these areas, or many of these areas, are not yet implemented. We, through a process that the scientists define, systematic conservation planning process, we go through a number of stages where important areas are identified. These areas are, the scientific information about these areas are being brought in through a systematic conservation planning approach, from defining goals of objectives to the limits to identifying important areas, uses, how a network could start to be configured, and then through a stakeholder engagement process where the cost-benefit analysis is being discussed, we start coming with a tool which, what you see here, for instance, is the map of natural values of the deep sea of the Azores that was compiled by the Azores University. Here you see data, for instance, on fishing, in this case of bottom long line, which allow to start overlapping these areas and understanding potential areas of conflicts, potential areas of interest. Another layer which shows the fishing data, in this case for pollen line, which is a very important fishing in the Azores for tuna. And again, the specialization of all this information allow us then to bring this to stakeholders and to start discussing possible solutions. Another area that we feel is very important at Oceano Azul is literacy, and especially literacy for kids and for children. And so we also developed a specific manual for kids in schools and for teachers. We have a training program for teachers that bring all this information to schools. During our expeditions, we also reach out internationally to many students through platforms such as the National Geographic Opens Explorer Classroom, where with a simple cell phone, you can reach out to students all over the world that then can interact directly with the scientists. When we come to port, the schools visit the ships, the kids see the scientists in action, they ask questions, they understand better what their ocean looks like. And through solutions such as these, we try to bring science and information directly to the populations and directly to decision makers. But because we also believe that the economy is critical for this new vision of human development without nature destruction, we also develop activities such as this one in partnership with another Portuguese foundation, the Carlos Gulbenkian Foundation, which is called Blue Bio Value, where essentially we do two things. We have an acceleration mechanism for startups that bring ocean solutions to the economy. And we have an ideation platform for universities so that researchers can understand that their ideas can be valuable in the market. They can transform those ideas into marketable products. So we have this challenge in front of us of protecting 30% of the ocean by 2030. This is what is on the table right now. We hope that the UN Ocean Conference is going to be an important platform to put this topic on the agenda. But again, this 30% need to be the right 30%, and they need to be established with the right tools, such as the mechanisms that I've just explained to you. But they also need to be protected fully or highly so that we can have the benefits, because we know that human ocean life, when rebuilt, it will not stay inside the protected areas. So ocean life, when rebuilt, will go outside these protected areas, and they will feed the fishing areas, they will feed the tourism, they will feed a number of other economic activities outside. So we firmly believe that a healthy ocean is key to human development, and today we don't have an healthy ocean. And so conservation and economic development need to go hand in hand. And this is where this nexus between economy and conservation is so important. Finally, I'm just going to bring to you the attention for this initiative. It is an international initiative that the Ocean Azul Foundation was also engaged. We have now more than 600 organizations around this Rise Up, a Blue Call to Action. We have developed this Blue Call to Action around these 6 letters that you see there. Each letter is an action point with a concrete plan. That plan was delivered to the Secretary General of the United Nations. Now we will bring this plan again and this network to the UN Ocean Conference. Any organization that wants to sign to the Rise Up for the Ocean can go to this website and sign to the ideas there, be part of this network. And we hope that the UN Ocean Conference can be a very important way for this super year of the ocean, where we'll have very important decisions in the Convention on Biological Diversity, in the WTO around subsidies, the BBNJ agreement on the United Nations, and of course the, the climate negotiations at COP. And so I'll just like to thank you for your attention, and thank you for the opportunity for the Ocean Azul Foundation to participate in this very interesting Blue Talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Manuel Gonçalves, because a lot of what done in the context of climate change to protect excess exploitation with very clear and specific projects, things which or from which we can take lessons and take them as examples for other projects in other places as well. Now I'm going to give the floor to one of our partners hosting this Blue Talks session. He is the CEO of Indonesia Ocean Justice Initiative, Dr. Mas Ahmad Santosa, will be doing a presentation on enhancing blue carbon ecosystem governance. Mas Santosa, I give you the floor.
Thank you, Pa Emmanuel. Good afternoon, everybody. Excellency Ambassador Cardoso and Papa Jackson's from the Kenya Embassy, and the host today is Pa Emmanuel and Ibu Nani Hendiarti as well as a keynote speaker, and all distinguished speakers, Ibu Sri Tantri Arundati, Louis Catarino, James Cairo, Nuno Banza, and Emmanuel Gonçalves. Thank you for your very interesting and very enlightening presentations. and hopefully I'm the last speaker, can, what do you call it, complement what already well explained by all speakers. First of all, I would like to mention as a part of the large ocean nations like Portugal and Kenya as well, our co-hosts, co-organizers. So blue economy or blue growth becomes a buzzword or fashionable words. And as we heard from James Cairo, that we all G16s, including Indonesia, Portugal, and Kenya, committed to adhere the three principles, three P's: effective protection, sustainable production, and equitable prosperity. But it is not easy to translate the three P's principles in exercising sustainable ocean economy. And the blue economy and blue growth perceived as the dominant discourse, blue growth and blue economy as beneficial for the economy, with the rapid expansion of economic activities in the oceans. However, without taking a proper precautions and sufficient check and balance, blue growth actually creates an uneven distribution of benefits and substantial social and environmental harms for the coastal communities. So I would like to share with you the offers from two experts. The first one is Bennett, and the second one is Chris Armstrong. So Bennett's offer the 10 Blue Justice Principles, and Chris Armstrong offers 7 principles of ocean justice. And I think this is good. For example, Armstrong identified 7 principles of ocean justice, which is aimed at listing basic principles that ought to inform changes to the architectures of ocean governance to help reverse the tide of inequality and ecosystem destruction. So I think all principles from Bennett as well as from Chris Armstrong are very important for all of us and very relevant in discussing about sustainable ocean economy, including blue carbon ecosystem governance. Second, next please, why blue carbon ecosystem is important? I don't want to explain again repeatedly, because already mentioned by James and mentioned by Ibu Arundhati as well, about the mangrove potential worldwide, Southeast Asia potential, and Indonesia's potential as well. So I don't want to repeat this, but I would like to start with what is the current threats to blue carbon ecosystem. The first one is threats to blue carbon ecosystem health is caused by direct human impacts or anthropogenic pressures, which are responsible for over 60% of global mangrove loss. The second, in Southeast Asia, mangrove, including Indonesia, is the most threatened in the world. Mangroves across Southeast Asia between 2000 and 2012 experienced loss at an average rate of 0.18% per year. And the third one, 80% of all human-caused mangrove loss globally occurs in 6 countries. All are located in ASEAN, Indonesia, Myanmar, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. Approximately 30% of mangrove change was caused by conversion to aquacultures, like experienced by Indonesia, Cambodia, and Philippines, and by expanding rice paddy fields, experienced by Myanmar, and oil palm, experienced by Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia. Mangrove deforestation remains substantial across Southeast Asia, with more than 100,000 hectares of mangrove forest lost between 2000 and 2012. Approximately 2% of the mangroves present in Southeast Asia in 2000 were lost during 2000 until 2012. So when we are talking about blue carbon ecosystem governance, why blue carbon ecosystem governance is important? So when we try to define governance, governance is an umbrella term that refers to the structures, institutions, such as laws, policy, rules, and norms, and processes that determine who makes decisions, how decisions are made, and how and what action are taken and by whom. And I think one of the scholar explained environmental governance needs to address four general objectives. Effective governance support the maintenance of system integrity and functioning. Equitable governance employs inclusive processes and produce fair outcomes. And responsive governance enables adaptation to diverse contexts and changing conditions. And robust governance ensures that functioning institutions persist, maintain performance, and cope with perturbations and crises. Speakers and participants, despite blue carbon ecosystem has a huge potential in addressing climate change, as Ibu Arundhati mentioned, and supporting livelihood, the health of blue carbon ecosystem has long been threatened by anthropogenic pressure. Hence, robust protections of existing blue carbon ecosystem and restoration of degraded blue carbon ecosystem is needed to halt rising pressure from climate change. Such efforts to conserve and restore blue carbon ecosystem should be carried out through effective, equitable, responsive, and robust blue carbon ecosystem governance. BCE governance, or blue carbon ecosystem governance, should address several aspects, among others. First, legal and policy frameworks. Second, institutional arrangement. Third, community engagement and tenurial security. 4, equitable benefit sharing. 5, maximizing financial resources for restoration, conservation efforts, and equitable payment mechanisms. So at least there are 4 challenges facing or faced by mangrove countries, including Indonesia. Challenges to blue carbon ecosystem governance. Those are very serious challenges. The first one is inadequate legal and policy frameworks and lack of clarity institutional arrangement to rehabilitate, restore, conserve, and manage blue carbon ecosystem. I think as some of us already familiar, absence of affirmative statement on fragile and threatened blue carbon ecosystem in constitution and legislation frameworks may lead to a lack of sense of urgency and emergency in protecting blue carbon. A strong recognition on the fragility and vulnerability of blue carbon ecosystem will have implication on the application of protection instrument. The most effective protection instrument, for example, no-take zone marine reserve or nature sanctuary in Indonesia called Zona Inti Kawasan Konservasi Perairan or protected forest. Before the emergence of blue carbon concept in 2009 by UNEP, conservation or protection of mangroves in mangrove countries generally relies on the legal regime that has existed prior to 2009, such as legal regime regarding forestry, fisheries, or general spatial planning. When blue carbon ecosystem is regulated in generic law, previous legal regime prior to blue carbon ecosystem, it does not address or it doesn't recognize the characteristic of mangroves and seagrasses, especially the fragility and the vulnerability characters. And unclear and overlapping authorities in blue carbon ecosystem institutional arrangement hinder rehabilitation, restoration, conservation, and enforcement efforts. The second challenge is limitation in ensuring community engagement and securing tenurial rights. There has been increasing evidence of positive outcomes from local communities' engagement in blue carbon projects, like in Ecuador, in Kenya, already well explained by James Cairo, Sundarbans mangrove restoration in India, to ensure, so in short, to ensure effective blue carbon ecosystem protection and equitable local community financial benefit, community engagement, and tenurial right should be ensured and secured. And the third challenge, financial constraint to support blue carbon ecosystem management and lack of community access to equitable benefit sharing, insufficient capital mobilization, and impediments of the utilization of carbon financial mechanism to fund BCE restoration, protection, and conservation, and also limited recognition of local communities or blue carbon dependent people's rights to be involved in decision-making process and conservation efforts, and absence of equitable benefit sharing schemes. That's the third challenge. And the last challenge is limited availability of data on blue carbon ecosystem, as already stated by previous speakers. But although the challenges are very serious, best practices of blue carbon ecosystem governance are found, as one of them already well explained by Dr. James Cairo. Financial incentive for the communities through payment for ecosystem services in Kenya, and community managed mangrove concession in Ecuador, for example, and the markets and mangrove project in Vietnam. And I would like to raise as well the potential to be best practice national restoration and rehabilitation of 600,000 hectares of mangrove in Indonesia. Presidential Regulation 2020 concerning the peatland and mangrove rehabilitation national agency appoints the agency to accelerate mangrove rehabilitation with a target area of 600,000 hectares until 2024 in 9 provinces across Indonesia. This is said to be the largest rehabilitation target in the world. In 2021 alone, the agency, as I mentioned before, targets the establishment of 220 Desa Peduli Mangrove or Mangrove Care Village to support this rehabilitation program. Of course, this program requires further evaluation on its effectiveness to be classified as a best practice. Another potential best practice also the application or the what do you call it, the exercise of the social forestry policy in Indonesia, promoted by Ministry of Environment and Forestry. The social forestry permit HKM approval is given for 35 years period and is subject to renewal under ministerial regulation. And social forestry, that's our temporary conclusion, can be temporarily perceived as a part of the tenurial security for local communities. For all examples or best practices or potential best practices I explained, the conclusion is in ensuring the sustainability of blue carbon ecosystem protection, governments need to facilitate community-based blue carbon management by ensuring access for communities to be highly involved. The second is securing tenurial rights And the third is provide direct or indirect incentive schemes for their protection and management efforts. So last slide, our recommendations for governance enhancement of the blue carbon ecosystem. First, strong national leadership and political will and supporting the protection of BCE, blue carbon ecosystem, followed by reforming of legal and policy frameworks. So that there cannot be, we won't find the supportive legal and policy framework if there is no strong political will. The second one is promoting community engagement and incentive-based approach while ensuring tenurial security and equitable benefit sharing. The third recommendation is maximizing financial resources for blue carbon ecosystem protection, restoration, and conservation. Recommendation number 4 is promoting international collaboration. For example, mangrove countries may engage with blue carbon ecosystem international experts, such as from IUCN, Conservation International, UNEP, universities, to have knowledge sharing on best practices and technical assistance to mangrove countries in developing blue carbon projects. Government should utilize existing platforms to escalate collaboration such as G20 and ASEAN cooperation scheme, which is very relevant for Indonesia. And the last recommendation is strengthening data on blue carbon ecosystem. Thank you very much, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Santosa. And we finished these panels on a high note. Now it's time to open the conversation. This is a dialogue after all. Indeed, I can see that that dialogue is already going on the chat room. We have, first we had a question by Pa Jeremiah for both Ibu Sri Tantri and to Dr. James Cairo. And the question was, how should national policy be enacted and implemented to ensure genuine participation of local community in the blue carbon projects, mitigation and or adaptation, design, implementation, and benefits? And Dr. James Cairo already answered this question. Of course, I'll invite you all to read his answer, as well as the subsequent question by Jeremiah. But of course, his question was also addressed at Ibu Sri Tantri. So maybe Ibu Sri Tantri wants to say a word about this question. Another question by our co-host Karen, directed at Dr. Emmanuel Gonçalves on MPA. How do you see MPAs that are highly protected but still may support livelihoods of coastal communities, as many scholars also see MPAs that are no-take zones are most effective MPA type, restoring fish and marine ecosystems stocks? So I guess I'm going to leave it for our 2-3 speakers that are targeted in these questions. First, I would start with the Ibu Sri Tantri, who, if you want to answer the first question by Pa Jeremiah.
Okay. Thank you for the question. Mentioned about the question about how should national policy be enacted and implemented to ensure genuine participation of local community in the blue carbon project, mitigation or adaptation design, implementation, and benefit. Okay, thank you. Well, I think for developing countries, it's quite challenging, yeah, for enacted the national policy. But actually, we try to encourage by giving the appreciation, such like in proclaim, with as a national institution, we have proclaim as an appreciation for the community base. We are aware that because of climate change, there will be many already respond by the. This is in context of climate change. Yeah, we realize that there are already many community already have gave some response about the climate change impact. So every we give them some appreciation, and the community that already have some appreciation have some how to say, they have some dignity to and also give some inspiration to other community to do the activity that give them a benefit actually, because if there is no benefit to community, such as for the welfare or for their livelihood, the program will not be proceed. Yeah. So in this case, we have to give them some incentive, like some appreciation. In case of Indonesia, many community like to be exposed, yeah, of their achievement, and they are very proud if they if what they achieve is exposed to as an in nation, and this is kind of like an incentive and also an encourage to other community to, and also inspire other community to implement the adaptation and mitigation action in their area. So this is one of our strategy, how to encourage other community to do the action that is gives, of course, a benefit to them. And the other is also we have to have some collaboration with others, yeah, such as whether it's a private sector or whether it's a university or mass media, and also the organization, organization of non-profit or organization like NGO or a CSO. So it has to be a, how to say, a pentahelix collaboration that will encourage the people to implement the action, whether it's adaptation or mitigation or blue economy as well. So in as a developing country, I think it's quite challenged because we have a limitation on resource. So this means that we have to make a collaboration with others stakeholders, such as like what I already mentioned about with the private sector or other like NGO, CSO, and maybe the philanthropy institution or the mass media, and also the university or the academia. So I think that is my answer. I hope it answer your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's I guess I'm hearing myself on the microphone. Since we already have another question for Dr. James Cairo, I would suggest that now Dr. Emmanuel Gonçalves would answer that other question I read a while ago. Those who don't remember, it is on how do you see MPAs that are highly protected but still may support livelihoods of coastal communities? As many scholars also see MPAs that are no-take zones are most effective MPA type restoring fish and marine ecosystems stocks. So, Dr. Emmanuel Gonçalves, I'll.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the question as well. Which is a very interesting one, Karina. So the science shows us clearly that fully protected MPAs are the ones who produce the most ecological benefits, because those are the ones which allow us to recover the whole components of the ecosystem, and so we'll expect more benefits from these areas. But of course, marine protected areas do not exist in a vacuum, or should not exist in a vacuum. They should exist in an ocean that needs to be 100% managed. And actually what we are doing today is that we're trying to close these areas to activities because we cannot manage the whole ocean. Because if we do it the other way around, if we think about an ocean which is 100% protected, and then you open areas for exploitation where you control how that exploitation is done, how those activities can be sustainable, we would be in a very different situation than we are today. But responding directly to your question, the highly protected areas still produce several of the ecological benefits because they allow very low type of extraction, and they are tools that can be very valuable, for instance, in areas where there are communities inside those protected areas that depend directly on those resources for food security. But what this means is that the type of fishing allowed inside these areas needs to be really small scale and really for subsistence levels, for instance, or by using techniques that are sustainable, such as, for instance, pole and line. But again, the intensity, the amount, etc., is what determines if they are or not compatible. You know, in the Rise Up for the Ocean initiative that I presented before, we have one measure directly to governments, which is a plea that all territorial seas should be reserved for small-scale fisheries. Because we know that what is destroying the ocean is the industrial fleets, is the huge impacts that we are having just by extracting biomass instead of extracting value. And if we manage these coastal areas much more sustainably, if we protect these areas against those industrial impacts, and if we integrate communities in the management of these areas with this perspective of managing the whole sea and having 30% fully protected or highly protected, we would be in a much better place to restore the ocean, but not only to restore the ocean, also to restore the coastal communities and economies. Because what we're seeing today is lots of people are being hurt by the fact that we don't have fish in the ocean. And that fish in the ocean is not there anymore because these huge impacts of the larger industrial activities that we allow to continue. And so in terms of how marine protected areas can bring these revenues to communities, it's also very important to think about sustainable finance mechanisms that allow the benefits of protection not to go to somewhere else, but to stay in those communities. And for instance, we are working with in several instances in co-management schemes where we establish committees from the communities with the interest parties that are able to manage their own resources, but also to manage the rest of the economic activities, for instance, through tourism and others, where those revenues can come directly to the communities so that they will support the conservation measures as well. Because otherwise what you have is everyone is looking at marine protected areas as a cost and not as a benefit, because I'm going to lose something. I'm going to lose my fishing ground. I'm going to lose the area that I use. and we are not able to derive the benefits to the community by rebuilding the ocean. And so this is the approach we think and we believe works, but it needs to have a very, very structured intervention from all these different perspectives, where the communities, scientific partners, NGOs, and governments need to work together for these goals to be possible and to be achievable. But we have shown that it's possible, and that's the part of the good news. And thank you for the question again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Emmanuel Gonçalves. And I'm going to read the last question on our chat. The last question of the day, now that the sun is setting in Jakarta. But actually, it sort of has already been answered. But a question was by Ibu Alia Safira Fakraini, who would like to ask Dr. James regarding Mikoko Pamoja. Before the Mikoko Pamoja project took place, did the community also cut mangroves for their needs? If so, how did Mikoko Pamoja educate the community and overcome this issue? I will give the floor to Dr. James Cairo. He already answered on the chat. Both question, the other question that was put by Jeremiah.
Thank you, Chairman.
Dr. James Cairo, the floor is
yours. Yes, I can hear you. Thank you, Chairman, and for the two questions. It's just to give a direct answer, but I can start with the first question. How do you enact laws that promote community participation? That's the way I'm rephrasing it. And I indicated for the laws to have a human face, they need also to be created with the people. Let the people be there. And this has been one of our movements in Kenya. You cannot pass any bill without people's input. So it's whoever are developing the bill, then it's come down and discussed. And most of the environmental laws in the country, those are forestry, water, wildlife, they have a very strong community participation. And we do have what we call, like in forestry, we say for you to manage the community, have opportunity to manage the forest through what we call community forest association. You go even to water, you'll hear water users association. Even if you're in the fisheries, there will be beach management unit. It's just an entity which gives the people power, and they even sit in the board. So that way, it is able to move and vet all the laws coming in, and even projects that are attacking such environment. On the other question on whether how the wood, how Mikoko Pamoja how community were doing before Mikoko Pamoja, remember mangrove are a national forest, and they are closer to the people, and this is the forest that provides 70% of the wood requirement. So, but you look at the forest, like in our country, mangrove only constitute 1%. There are only 60,000 hectares. Indonesia, you have acres. So this is only 60,000 hectares. It's so little. But when you look at their totality, their significance, and what they're contributing to fisheries, with 80% of commercial fisheries depending on mangrove in one way or another, it's easier to sell that message. Look, we can get wood elsewhere. In fact, wood is the cheapest, is the lowest value when you come to mangrove, but it's what is being most degrading. So if you can provide alternative sources of wood, like how we do is to have fast-growing trees on agricultural land, on farm, we call it farm plots. That plots are able to compensate for the wood. And then we also bring other sources of energy, like we use the improved high energy saving stove, we use solar. With the combination of that, you are able to remove the most degrader of the system without affecting the community livelihood. And by the time and then you increase the ecosystem resiliency to produce other goods and services which are essential. And then the avoided deforestation, the credits they get is able to refuel back, supply the water, supply the school, support the health system. So that way they see direct benefit. And when they see direct benefit, they work with you. They become your protector rather than your destructor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cairo. As I said, the sun now has already set in Jakarta. It's already a bit late, but there are 3 things left that we'd like you to stay with us for. The first thing is the group photo, which we're going to do now. Afterwards, I'm going to give the floor to Ambassador Maria Cardoso, to finish or to have the last word on our session today. And finally, I will leave you with a promotional video about what you can expect from the UN Ocean Conference in Lisbon. But now I'm going to ask you to please, all of you, turn on your cameras, and then at 3 we'll have a photo. There are people still turning on their cameras. Almost there. No one else? No one else wants to be in the group photo? Well then, at 3, 1, 2, 3. Let me check whether it's done. It's done. Thank you very much for the photo. Now for the final word on today's session, I will give the floor to Ambassador Maria João Lopes Cardoso. And this is all for me. Thank you very much from my side as well for your participation, for the very interesting presentations today. And well, let this be the beginning. As I said, the conversation has just started. We'll continue in Lisbon. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you. So the last words, in fact, are to thank you for enabling us to have a view of what is going on our 3 countries, different countries, Kenya, Indonesia, and Portugal. So we had the opportunity and the privilege to hear about each country's national ocean strategies. Then we also had the opportunity to listen to the specificities of mangroves, both in Kenya, in Indonesia, and in Guinea-Bissau. And ideas, we heard several ideas to the plans, our national plans to encourage the ocean sustainability, and to also, we also understand that this can only be done by the involvement of the populations, of the academia, of the public sector, of youth, and of philanthropy as well. And this is very much what we're hoping, the kind of stakeholders that we hope will join us in Lisbon at the end of June. It's all this is very inspiring, and I really hope that we can follow on these cooperation regarding the protection of all these marine and coastal ecosystems, and to see if we can come up after the conference in the next few months with more meetings of this type. And also, I know that the Indonesian delegation and perhaps also the Kenyan delegation to the United Nations Ocean Conference would like to have bilateral meetings with Portuguese and with other experts present. So please feel free to contact us. We would be willing to come, in our case, with the Indonesian participants and delegations. We'd be very happy to facilitate the meetings with yourselves, with Dr. Manuel Gonçalves, maybe with the Fundação Oceano Azul. We also mentioned Dr. Luis Caterino already has the, we mentioned this to him as well. And also Dr. Nuno Banza. I think that maybe if you had time to meet with the Indonesian delegation, that would help us in the future. And if you could come up with some more proposals of things that we could do together, it would be very, very nice. And as ambassador of Portugal to Indonesia, I will reveal another secret after the one that I'm a biologist with particular interest in ocean affairs. It's that I would really like to see Indonesian experts and Portuguese experts traveling. So I think that actually meeting, you have the opportunity in June, of course, during the United Nations conference, but we'd be very happy also to try and organize some exchange of visits and see if we can promote some actual cooperation, practical meetings, first webinars and then meetings, and some physical exchanges of experts and students in the future. So I'm counting on you, and please do feel free to contact us. We definitely want to promote this. It's a priority, and I'm a great ocean fan, and so let's say that I have a personal interest in this. And while I'm here, please use me and abuse me. I'll try to do my best to put you all together and to save the oceans and to save the planet. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend almost 3 hours with us. But it's an important issue, and we have to do something. We have to do something, definitely, and it starts now. Thank you, thank you. Another video.
Thank you everybody, and have a fantastic evening, afternoon.
Salvar o oceano, preservar o futuro. Este é o mote de um encontro decisivo para o futuro da humanidade. Os atuais problemas do oceano vão muito para além da sobrepesca ou da poluição. O oceano global sofre de acidificação, aumento da temperatura média, desoxigenação e perda de biodiversidade. Mas uma nova era para o oceano pode começar em Lisboa. Em junho de 2022, a capital portuguesa recebe a Conferência dos Oceanos das Nações Unidas. Todos os Estados-membros da ONU são convidados a participar. Governos, empresas, organizações não governamentais e universidades vão dialogar sobre melhores políticas para uma governação sustentável do oceano. Há décadas que Portugal tem um papel fundamental na diplomacia do oceano. Hoje, mais do que nunca, o país está disposto a assumir responsabilidades na construção de um novo paradigma de gestão baseado no conhecimento científico e no equilíbrio ambiental, social e económico. Organizada em conjunto com o Quênia, a Conferência dos Oceanos das Nações Unidas vai definir ações para implementar o Objetivo de Desenvolvimento Sustentável 14. Proteger a vida marinha. O tempo urge para concretizar este e os outros 16 objetivos da Agenda 2030 da ONU. A recuperação da pandemia deve orientar-nos para uma relação mais equilibrada com a natureza.
O oceano é fundamental na regulação do clima, não só pela retenção dos gases de estufa, como pela redistribuição do calor a nível global. Tal como ficou bem reconhecido na última Cimeira Climática, a COP26, o papel do oceano é crítico no combate aos eventos extremos que têm vindo a afetar a humanidade.
Para a pesca continuar a ser uma importante fonte de proteína alimentar, tem de ser encontrado um novo ponto de equilíbrio.
Sabemos desde já que devemos olhar para o mar com outros olhos, como fonte de recursos de forma sustentável. A aposta num oceano saudável é um investimento com retorno para o ambiente, para a economia e para toda a sociedade.
Uma nova economia azul pode revolucionar os muitos usos do oceano. Nas rotas comerciais, na energia renovável, nas substâncias para fármacos, nas telecomunicações e muito mais.
O mar é muito mais do que um recurso. É fonte de bem-estar espiritual. É palco de desporto, cenário de lazer. No oceano, vamos ser mais felizes.
A humanidade é chamada a encontrar novas soluções, a alertar consciências e alterar comportamentos, a reforçar a mensagem de que só juntos podemos salvar o oceano.
A saúde dos oceanos está nas nossas mãos, em todos os pontos do globo. Cada um pode fazer a diferença. É urgente fazer as escolhas certas, agir, proteger, conservar e garantir um futuro melhor para as gerações da amanhã.
Conferência dos Oceanos das Nações Unidas. O futuro do oceano decide-se em Lisboa. Salvar o oceano, preservar o futuro. Este é o mote de um encontro decisivo para o futuro da humanidade. Os atuais problemas do oceano vão muito para além da sobrepesca ou da poluição. O oceano global sofre de acidificação, aumento da temperatura média, desoxigenação e perda de biodiversidade. Mas uma nova era para o oceano pode começar em Lisboa. Em junho de 2022, a capital portuguesa recebe a Conferência dos Oceanos das Nações Unidas. Todos os Estados-membros da ONU são convidados a participar. Governos, empresas, organizações não governamentais e universidades vão dialogar sobre melhores políticas para uma governação sustentável do oceano. Há décadas que Portugal tem um papel fundamental na diplomacia do oceano. Hoje, mais do que nunca, o país está disposto a assumir responsabilidades na construção de um novo paradigma de gestão baseado no conhecimento científico e no equilíbrio ambiental, social e económico. Organizada em conjunto com o Quênia, a Conferência dos Oceanos das Nações Unidas vai definir ações para implementar o Objetivo de Desenvolvimento Sustentável 14. Proteger a vida marinha. O tempo urge para concretizar este e os outros 16 objetivos da Agenda 2030 da ONU.
Muito obrigada, muito obrigada outra vez. Até à próxima para ver se nos conhecemos.
E até a próxima.
Yes, let's all meet when we can. Yes. Bye. Thank you so much. Thank you for participating. Bye. Bye. Bye.